Hi, third graders. All right, so jumping right in today. When we finished yesterday, I asked you to think about why Flora was saying that she was homesick, even though she was in her home childhood home where she grew up, even though she was with her mom, her dad was there. Why was she feeling homesick? And it could be because her whole life changed, right? Even though she's in her house, things aren't the same. Her dad's there right now, but he doesn't live there. And her mom is acting strange. So maybe she's just hoping or wishing for the life she had that maybe seemed easier to her. All right, so the next chapter is there a word for that? He sat in the window of Flora's room and looked down at the sleeping Flora and then up and out at the lighted windows of the other houses. He thought about the words he would like to add to his poem. He thought about the music at Dr. Measham's house, the way the voices sounded, singing. He thought about the look on Mr. Claus's face when he went sailing backward down the hallway. Was there a word for that? Was there a word for all those things together? The lighted windows and the music and the terrified, disbelieving look on the cat's face when he was vanquished? The squirrel listened to the wind blowing through the leaves on the trees. He closed his eyes and imagined a giant donut with sprinkles on top of it and cream inside of it, or jelly maybe. He thought about flying. He thought about the look on Flora's face when her mother said that life would be easier without her. What was a squirrel supposed to do with all of these thoughts and feelings? Flora let out a small snore. Ulysses opened his eyes. He kept them open until the lights in the windows of the other houses went off one by one, and the world went dark except for a single streetlight at the end of the block. The streetlight fizzled into darkness and then flared back to life and then fizzled again. Darkness, light, What, Ulysses wondered, does the streetlight want to say? He thought about William Spiver. He thought about the word banished and the word homesick. He imagined typing the words and watching them appear on the paper letter by letter. Flora had told him before she went to sleep that she thought it would be a good idea if he didn't type anything for a while, at least not on her mother's typewriter. It seems to provoke her, she said. I think your typing poems and flying around the kitchen kind of made her have a nervous collapse or something. She had said this, and then she had given him a sad look and closed the door to the bedroom. I closed the door as a reminder, okay? No typewriter. No typing. But what was a closed door to a superhero? Look, what's he doing? You stupid little shepherdess. It was superhero time, or something. Whoops. So look closely at those pictures. What's Ulysses doing? And what was he specifically told not to do? A sign. Flora was dreaming. She was sitting on the bank of a river. William Spiver was sitting beside her. The sun was shining and a long way off. There was a sign, a neon sign. There was a word on the sign, but Flora couldn't read it. What does the sign say? Flora asked. What sign? Said William Spiver. I'm temporarily blind. It was comforting to have William Spiver act just as annoying in a dream as he would in real life. Flora relaxed. She stared at the river. She had never seen anything so bright. If I were an explorer and I discovered this river, I would call it the Incandesto, said Flora. Think of the universe as an accordion, said William Spiver. Flora felt a prick of irritation. What does that mean? She said. Can't you hear it? Asked William Spiver. He tilted his head to one side and he listened. Flora listened too. It sounded as if someone a long way off were playing a toy piano. Isn't it beautiful? Said William Spiver. It doesn't sound much like an accordion to me, said Flora. Oh, Flora Belle, said William Spiver, you're so cynical. Of course it's an accordion. The sign was closer. It had moved somehow. The neon letters were blinking on and off and on and off, spelling out the words, Welcome to Blunder Meachen. Wow, said Flora. What? Said William Spiver. I can read the sign. What does it say? Welcome to Blunder Meachen, said Flora. The piano music got louder. William Spiver took hold of her hand. They sat together on the banks of the Incandesto River, and Flora was perfectly happy. She thought, I don't feel homesick at all. She thought, William Spiver's holding my hand. And then she thought, I wonder where Ulysses is. All right, so that whole part was a dream. But what do you think that dream it might be telling Flora? She's sitting there talking with William, trying to figure out what a sign says. But then sitting there with him and talking, she has this thought that she doesn't feel homesick at all. So what's happening in that dream? Dear Flora, he will defend the defenseless. He will protect the weak. He will write a poem. The kitchen was dark, lit only by the light above the stove. The squirrel was alone, but he had the strange feeling of not being alone. It was almost as if a cat were watching him. Had Mr. Claus tracked him down? Was he hiding in the shadows waiting to exact his revenge? Cat revenge was a terrible thing. Cats never forgot an insult. Never. And to be thrown down a hallway backward by a squirrel was a terrible insult. Ulysses held himself very still. He put his nose up in the air and sniffed, but he didn't smell cat. He smelled smoke. Flora's mother stepped out of the shadows and into the muted light of the kitchen. So, she said, I see you helped yourself to my typewriter again. Put your little squirrel paws all over it. She took another step forward. She put the cigarette in her mouth and reached out with both hands and yanked the paper from the typewriter. The rollers screamed in protest. Flora's mother crumpled the poem without looking at it, without reading one word of it, and dropped the paper on the floor. So, she said. She exhaled a ring of smoke, and the circle floated in the dim light of the kitchen, a beautiful, mysterious O. As she considered the cigarette smoke suspended in the air above him, Ulysses felt a wave of joy and sorrow, both things at once. He loved the world. He loved all of it. Smoke rings and lonely squids and giant donuts and Florabelle, Buckman's round head, and all the wonderful thoughts inside of it. He loved William Spiver and his expanding universe. He loved Mr. George Buckman and his hat and the way he looked when he laughed. He loved Dr. Meacham and her watery eyes and her jelly sandwiches. He loved Tootie, who had called him a poet. He loved the stupid little shepherdess. He even loved Mr. Claus. He loved the world, this world. He didn't want to leave. Flora's mother reached past him and picked up a blank piece of paper and rolled it into the typewriter. You want to type, she said. He nodded. He did want to type. He loved typing. Okay, let's type. What are you going to type? You're going to type what I say. But that went against the whole point of typing what someone else said. Dear Flora, said Flora's mother. Ulysses shook his head. Dear Flora, said Flora's mother again in a louder, more insistent voice. Ulysses looked up at her. Smoke exited her nostrils in two thin streams. Do it, she said. Slowly, the squirrel typed the words. Dear Flora, and then stunned into a dumb willingness, he typed every terrible, untrue word that came out of Phyllis Buckman's mouth. The squirrel took dictation. So what do you think she's telling him to write? He's, shaking his head no. He's, we didn't really want to do it, and she's forcing him to. What type of letter do you think she's having him write to Flora? A stone squirrel. When he was finished, Flora's mother stood over his shoulder, reading and nodding and saying, That's right, that ought to do it. There are a few misspellings, but then you're a squirrel. Of course you're going to misspell things. She lit another cigarette and leaned against the kitchen table and considered him. I guess it's time, she said. Wait here, I'll be right back. And he did as she said. He waited. She left the kitchen and he simply sat there, unmoving. It was as if she had put a spell on him. It was as if typing the lies, the wrong words, had depleted him of all ability to act. Once long ago, in a garden in springtime, Ulysses had seen a squirrel made of stone. Gray, hollowed eyes, frozen. In his stone paws, he held a stone acorn that he would never get to consume. That acorn was probably in the garden now, still holding the acorn, still waiting. I am a stone squirrel, thought Ulysses. I can't move. He looked over at the words he had typed. They were untrue words. Several of them were misspelled. There was no joy in them, no love. And worst of all, they were words that would hurt Flora. He turned slowly. He sniffed his tail, and as he sniffed, he remembered the words that Flora had shouted at him in the giant donut. Remember who you are. You're Ulysses. This helpful advice had been followed by a single powerful word. Act. He heard the sound of footsteps. What should he do? What action should he take? He should type. He should type a word. But what word? All right, so Ulysses is here thinking about that what he typed is going to hurt Flora. So what do you think it said? What do you think he typed? What do you think is Flora's mom told him to type in that letter? And what do you think Ulysses might do about it? So she has reminded him a couple of times that he's Ulysses, he's a superhero, right? So she's telling him to act. He doesn't feel good about what he just did. So what do you think he might do in this moment? Think about that, and I will see you next time. Bye.